Thanks for listening to Make Sense with Jason and Holly Peterson. We're a husband and wife team who are trying to help you, the consumer, make sense out of the world of digital marketing and communication and the tools that go along with it, like social media, video, tech, and beyond. We own a digital marketing company called GenR8 Marketing and specialize in small business, but also consult, teach, and help people stay informed and on top of the latest developments in the tech, marketing, and communication industry. So thanks for joining us today. We have a couple of topics for you that we want to go over. One of the things that we're talking about today and kind of continuing into 2024, Jason is going to...
Yeah, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the products related to virtual reality and augmented reality for both business and consumer purposes.
Sweet. Okay. Don't really know anything about that, so I am interested in hearing about this topic too.
Indeed.
And then I am going to go ahead and start talking today initially about continuing to fact check on social media and constantly being, I don't know if weary is the right word, but just cognizant of the fact that not everything that comes over the social feeds is legit fact-checked information. And so we need to continue to be careful about that. And, today I just kind of wanted to talk briefly about some of the tools that are available. If you are wanting to kind of get into that a little bit more, even teach some of these tools to your children, as, our children are constantly on the internet and getting onto social feeds. So one of the key things that you can look for as you're thumbing through your social feeds and kind of going through your various platforms is one of the things that fake media likes to do is, or trolls for that matter, this is including comments even on, say, an article or a post, is they want to always evoke a very emotional response. Sometimes it's an amazing emotional response, a good emotional response. Sometimes it's a very negative, visceral response. Anything that triggers that kind of emotion within you is an immediate checkpoint. You need to say, hey, wait a minute. Number one, why is this evoking such an emotional response? And number two, this is a red flag. This is one of the key goals of trolls and for fake news outlets, etc., to do. And it's specific to kind of sending you down a certain rabbit hole in direction as it relates to whatever the posting content is that's grabbing your attention. So again, whether it's good or whether it's bad, you want to make sure that that's something that you're taking note of, okay? And one of the things you can do to fact check it, very simple, is you can literally copy and paste the exact post into Google to do a search on it, or whatever your preferred search method is. And if you do that, it will literally come up and let you know immediately, where is the source of this article? Is it legitimate? Are the facts pertaining to this information correct, made up, etc.? So that is something that I would highly recommend. It's very simple to do before you go down that rabbit trail that they're wanting you to go down for whatever reason. Go ahead and make sure that you're checking it in that respect, okay? One of the other things that you can do too is get onto a couple of different places that actually exist completely and only to do this very thing of fact checking and proofing sources and materials. That first one, and I'm sure many of you have heard about this one and it's been around for a long time, is Snopes.com. So it's just Snopes.com. Whether it's urban legends to some of those latest articles that are, again, emotional, evoking some of that reaction, they are there and they are on it and they're already looking at that material for you. So you can access that there. The other one that's a big one is called pointer.org. And that's poynter.org. They're doing the same thing. And they are more specific to some of that social media content, those posts, those articles, again, that are meant to kind of grab your attention and really kind of evoke that emotional response on some level. Again, when it comes down to it, a lot of it's going to be all about the source of that material. So depending on who that source is, and what their agenda is, because many of these things, just like health studies, for example, if you have a health study that comes out about how sugar is actually good for you, and it comes out it's from, the sugarindustry.org, we all know that's probably going to be a little bit of a sussy situation, but that's true for anything. So the same thing applies here. Check the sources, see where the origination of the content is, and yeah, you're going to be off to a great start. And it's also going to help you as you get into that habit of viewing your feed in a lot different way. And I would say, and Jason, you can chime into this because you've experienced it too, but there is something to making sure that you are constantly curating content on your feeds. I know that it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to comment or like, But there are tools now that says, I don't want to see this, or I want to see less of this, or this does not apply to me. So if you find for some reason that you're seeing a lot of garbage in your feed, you have not only the responsibility as a user, but you have the ability to make sure that your feed is giving you much better curated content, and it's doing a service to helping weed out some of that garbage and bring some of those trolls, those crap sites down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've had a lot of people complain, oh my gosh, I stopped using Facebook because of all the crap that it sends. And to your point, for me, or whether it's, again, let's just say you've got a good friend that's maybe posting a bunch of stuff that is a little more inflammatory. You can do things now where
we all have them.
Right, so you don't have to unfriend them, but maybe just don't see the stuff. So I agree with you. Anything that's out there that's trying to evoke an emotional response tends to have an agenda. I don't care what your belief system is. But the bottom line is you can essentially say, don't show this to me, ads, content, whatever the case is. And for me, that has allowed me to have a fairly clean feed.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's more enjoyable.
It's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, at least in my opinion, specifically with Facebook, I do not look at Facebook as a source for news. I know that they have tried in some cases, and there's probably instances where, but generally speaking, I look at social media as, family pictures from Christmas. So I think you need to be cognizant of the environment that you're consuming the content from and what is it really about. So I think when people look at it that way, it tends to sort of change the expectation and the desired outcome of what am I really on here for? Let's think about that. But it is something like we're trying to teach our kids and everybody we come into contact with at our business is just do your due diligence, right? Those fact-checking sites are really, really helpful. But again, I think you have a lot of control now to curate and make sure that you're getting stuff that you want and get rid of the stuff you don't want.
And please, 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 if you're one of those repost, resharers, please check that content that you're resharing. You don't want to be part of the problem. I mean, if it comes down to it, you're resharing information that isn't legit, that hasn't been fact-checked. You don't want to be part of the problem. Let's all be part of the solution.
I totally agree. We have a much greater responsibility now. It's no different than in our last segment. We talked about the responsibility we have as parents to help our kids use things correctly. We have the same responsibility as adults. So these are the kinds of things that if we're not thinking about it, we can kind of get sucked in.
Yep. There's a lot of negativity out there.
Absolutely.
All right, Jason, tell us more about VR.
So this has been something I've been fascinated. Myself, Jack, and I have been talking about this for, oh my goodness, probably the last 12 years. It began many, many moons ago when we saw them come up with Google Glass. And this idea of having a device in which you could interact in a virtual space. Well, as expected, it was so far ahead of its time, and there were so many issues, and the technology wasn't good. It was completely like an epic failure. During this time, there is sort of two things happening at once. One is what we call augmented reality. So for those that did the games with like Pokemon Go, where you'd literally go around and you'd hold your phone up and then it would show something. Or like if you're, say, using IKEA and you hold your phone up and it can place a picture of the furniture in your living room. Augmented reality is where you're using the lens to look through and ultimately it places an item or so forth or whatever inside of that space. The other is virtual reality, which is literally you're inside of a space. You're not necessarily seeing what's going on here. You're literally like
in another world.
In another world, okay? So these two things have simultaneously been happening for the last, like I said, 10 years. And I would say the virtual reality has sort of gone the route of gaming. So Facebook got on board quite a while ago. It's changed its name. Its original name was Oculus. It's now changed itself to MetaQuest. So these are devices, again, they're big sort of thick, almost like ski goggles you put on your face. And it has been surrounded or it has been centered around the idea of kind of a gaming experience where you're doing stuff. And I know our son, one of his friends, has one of these and it's a lot of fun. And you can, again, do joint things where you're like, let's say it's
climbing a wall.
Right. Climbing a wall, or like old school Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I'm gonna like date myself, where you're like literally like in the ring doing that stuff.
Well, isn't the idea that you're almost doing something physical?
Right.
Like you're literally kind of like doing the motions of
You're
something
doing
physical.
something, correct.
Yeah.
So it's again taking from the gaming perspective, the Nintendo Wii started off where you could like move stuff around and you'd use it where you're interacting with this. Now you're like in a virtual space. Okay. At the same time, this other aspect. Now, during this time, Apple has been watching, listening, and paying attention to these things. Now, quick history lesson. What Apple has done in the last 25 years is they've watched technology advance. We could say the iPod. MP3 players came out. There's a bunch of stuff. We're like, they're kind of okay. They come out with the iPod. We all know the history. Changes everything. iPhone, exact same thing. Hey, we waited around. There were smartphones around. They were kind of clunky. Boom, they come to the market with an iPhone. Changes everything. Apple Watch, same thing. Smartwatches have been around. They are like, the market share of those are crazy. So they are known for sort of waiting to enter the market space when the technology has matured. So on the one hand, Facebook, their product from a gaming perspective is very solid. Like it's really matured. It's very good. It's pretty affordable. They do have a higher end line that is meant to be sort of office production focused, but quite frankly, I don't see that being remotely relevant because Facebook's not in the business of business software. It's a social platform. So it's like $500, give or take, for the Facebook one. This Apple one, they released, call it demo of it, earlier this year called the Apple Vision Pro. Now this first iteration coming out is not cheap. Okay, it's like $3,000.
Whoa.
But I look at this as a beta product. Okay, now here's the thing this is going to do, and I am telling you again, for those, when I've talked about this with Jack, when we think of, for those that have gone to the Avengers movies and we see Iron Man and Hulk using stuff, or, Iron Man with Jarvis, and you've got like the virtual stuff with screens. This is what I'm talking about. So Apple is marrying this sort of immersive experience with augmented reality with virtual reality. And it is absolutely crazy. Everything from consumer. So for example, I want to watch a movie. I got these suckers on. I'm literally in the movie. So it's almost like an IMAX experience where I'm literally like in the middle of it. It's absolutely bonkers. So that's part of it. The other part of it is like, hey, I'm working on my Mac. I mean, I know for both of us, I use Windows, you use your Mac. You would literally be sitting there and you could have a screen the size of 15 feet.
Sounds like sensory overload.
Well, and what you can do is you can move things away so you only have one little thing you're looking at. So it could be, a spreadsheet. You could be sitting there, or a Word doc, or a design. So you're still interacting with a computer or a keyboard or whatever the case is, but you have this interactive space in which you can see, your room and everything like that, but it's got these virtual screens up.
Wow.
Okay. That's pretty sweet. And I think we are, I'll say, 2 years away from this becoming, I think, a standard implementation in the workforce. I just absolutely see it happening because you start having things like, hey, which the MetaQuest does have this too, Zoom. Right? If pandemic changed everything with Zoom, I know for us and for me, as many know, I'm in sales. I have so many conversations now with people locally, regionally, and nationally where we do a Zoom call because we can see each other. Google's been working on this technology, Facebook has, and Apple is, but the bottom line is you'll be able to like stand right there and sit in a virtual space in a table next to that individual where it's like you're right in the same room. That stuff's happening. This
sounds like that show Upload on Amazon.
Yes, which is a great show. It's totally awesome, totally hilarious.
The virtual meetings.
Like I totally recommend it, and so does Holly. So you have this, because the technology is improved, you've got this. Now, this to me was the tipping point that Apple didn't talk about that I discovered, and I talked a little bit about with Jack a couple months ago, was immersive video. All right. At the end of the day, Apple is a consumer product company. Obviously, these products are used for work and businesses, but they focus around the consumer experience. The thing that I know I do, and I'm sure people make fun of me for, is I take photos and videos all the time. I'm obviously a videographer and a photographer, but with our family, I mean, goodness gracious, our kids are going to have a thumb drive someday of all the videos and photos. With the iPhone 15 and newer, by default, video is captured in what's called an immersive format. Okay, what does that mean? That means that all of those videos that you take could be viewed through the Vision Pro, where you are standing in the environment of the video shot.
That's insanity. So basically, it's like you're reliving it.
Correct. So I can go back to, and again, there's stuff in Hollywood, you've seen these in movies, where I can go back in a memory. So, I mean, again, let's just say this, like everybody's got grandparents or loved ones and stuff, and 10 years later, they're not around. You could literally go back into that environment in that moment and live that moment and be right there and sit with them, and you can't talk to them, obviously. Apple's looking at this, I like the word three-dimensional chess. They're looking at it from a lot of angles, from both productivity, from user experience, and again, let's be honest, the emotional heartstrings, right?
Well, it sounds to me, too, like there's a healthy dose of some of this escalation of AI involved here, too.
Absolutely. So, Apple's using a lot of this machine learning and the stuff they've been doing. I mean, I think the thing that everybody has to know, and this is a side tangent, this AI stuff has been going on for a long time.
Sure.
It's kind of, gotten crazy in the last 12 months. But all of this stuff is happening, and it's allowing them to do these kinds of things where it processes this stuff real time. So the million-dollar question is, does the Apple product become the de facto standard like the iPhone and the iPod and the Apple Watch? I don't know. At this point, the price point is cost prohibitive. I think the high-end Facebook one is like $9.99. So they're going to have to get that price point down to obviously improve that experience. So I think the Apple product, it's going to take a full year. I don't think, this is sort of that like, hey, we're testing the waters. It's those early adopters. We're going to get feedback. To be honest with you, I'm a little surprised they've entered the market at such a high price point. It sort of seems counterintuitive to the way Apple's doing it, but I think because things are happening so quickly, they want to make sure that they've carved out a space. But I'm really excited about this. I think it is a fascinating, and again, of all the tech companies, clearly they all have an agenda, they all make money, but most of the companies, with the exception of, I'd say, Microsoft and Apple, are advertising companies. Amazon, Facebook, you are the product. With Apple specifically, privacy is one of their big priorities. So for me, if I'm trying to trust, or Google is the other one that's big in advertising. If I'm trusting a company right now as it relates to the privacy, they're probably the one that I would put my money down on.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's fascinating. I'd say the last thing I did want to add that Meta mentioned is they've actually created a Ray-Ban sunglasses, which is the Google Glass. So,
well, see, and that's my thing. Like, it does not sound attractive for me to use any sort of VR headset. It just looks huge. It looks clunky. It seems to really shut you down from the true world around you. And that is not my personality. And so that bothers me, that idea. If it was more a situation where you could just slip on some glasses like I already wear periodically anyway, then fine. Yeah, I could see myself interacting on that level. But I don't want this clunky headset where it's like I'm totally shut off from the world.
Right. And
some people probably like that. That's not my bag.
And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I totally believe that this trajectory of how technology evolves is just a matter of time.
And that's also like in that show Upload. It's like sunglasses. They just slip on quick.
That's right.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of, I'd say, bad news related to technology. This is kind of exciting. It's interesting. It's, we talk a lot about our lives and how our children's lives and our children's lives are going to be different. And just this dynamic of this augmented virtual reality dynamic is going to change the way we interact. And we're just going to keep a pulse on it and see what happens.
Cool stuff. All right. So finally, our listener question today is, does it make a difference to update my website regularly? Short answer, yes.
Yes.
I'll let you chime in here, Jason, but I would say just from a pure standpoint of content and just kind of giving Google and some of those other obvious search engines out there the ability to constantly read your site, one of the things they reward you for is updated information. And so the short answer is yes, absolutely, even if it's a simple blog post that you're putting up once a month. And again, as in the previous episode, there are ways that you can tap into AI to kind of get that content if you do not have time or resource yourself to do it, and provide some updated information on your website. Jason, feel free to take it from here.
Yeah, one of the most common questions I'm asked is, how do I get on the top 10 of Google? This is something I hear all the time.
All the time.
And the term that has been used over the years is search engine optimization, which, again, I'm not a big fan of that term because I don't think it's very accurate.
Which is that whole SEO thing.
Right, SEO. As it relates to the way Google works right now, the number one SEO strategy is to update your site. Now, I think what we're encouraging with the AI side of it is, okay, let's say there's a blog post you want to do about tips related to lawn care, and you just need some prompts. So I'm not a fan of just copy pasting out of ChatGTP, but use that as a starter. Edit it to what you think.
Exactly.
So you're not starting from scratch. So I think that's the benefit to the AI tools right now as it relates to content, is use that as a starting point. But the bottom line is, yeah, SEO 101. I mean, literally, I would say if I broke it into a pie, it's updating your site's about 75% of it.
Yeah. I would also say, too, think about it from the user standpoint. Even yourself as a user on another website. It's kind of off-putting when you go to a website, especially for the first time, and you can tell immediately that the content has not been updated. So, hey, you go to their what's new section, etc. The last thing they have in there is a PR release from 3 years ago. And I'm not saying necessarily that, say, that information is not relevant. It's not fresh, it's not updated, it doesn't show an active company. That would be the thing that you need to think about. How is this coming off to your user? If you feel that it's not fresh enough, or it's not really showcasing who you are as a team perhaps, or the products that you offer, or say location, branding, etc., probably need to take a look at that and say, what can we do to not only improve this, but what does it look like from a content standpoint? And that's something that Google can read. And just a reminder, Google reads video and Google reads pictures. So don't think that you can go, smack up a bunch of commercial kind of catalog photography on there that's not necessarily you specific and your brand specific, and that's going to get you where you need to be. No, perhaps you might need to hire a photographer. Perhaps you've got someone on staff that can take some updated photos of everybody. Honestly, as long as it translates well on the website, it doesn't matter if it's professional or not. Get some new pictures up there. Tag those pictures. Make sure that Google can read that. All of that's really important.
Yes. Yeah. Update content, but consider the quality of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we say we're auditioning to Google to say, hey, take me seriously. I'm worth you indexing me and putting me higher in the rankings. So when you look at it through that lens, yeah, you're always looking at it as what is unique to me. How can I make that content something different than everybody else has?
Yep. Not about flashy, just about good quality content.
Correct.
All right, that's all we got today. So thanks for listening. If you guys want to check us out on our website, you can go to GenR8Marketing.com, and we've got all of our social feeds there as well. So feel free to jump on, look at those blogs, check out some video, and our podcasts are listed there as well.
Yes, and just go to GEN, the letter R, number 8, marketing.com. Thanks so much.